Hello there folks, and welcome back to another video. In this one we're going to be doing a little bit of rumour mongering within the world of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. It's probably one of my favourite Games Workshop games at the moment. I really enjoy how it plays, I really like the mechanics, I love the lore and the stories and the miniatures that they've been coming up with for the new edition. And so I'm going to try and have a little bit of a sort of structured look at 3 factions in particular, maybe 4, that I think are going to have some really interesting things happening throughout this current edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar and where things are going with it. So you'll see this is where a lot of the stuff sort of pops up with the TGA community. You'll find lots and lots of stuff here. I will have this link down below so you can go and have a look through all of the different rumours that have been put together. They come from a variety of different sources. A lot of big names that people will remember from rumours will be things like Boole and White Fang. They are definitely high up there on the list of people who get involved in all this rumour mongering, and more often than not actually tend to be right, actually. So obviously take things they say with a pinch of salt and all that kind of good stuff, but this is a great little way for you to dive in and have a look at all the different rumours that are floating around within the universe. So we're actually going to start out with Skaven. So Skaven is a really interesting one at the moment because there was a random sort of pop-up of information of some fun stuff coming for the Skaven in terms of their gutter runners and their night runners and things like that. So if you look over at the Skaven range, one of the only real updates they had for the sort of Eshin side of things was the inclusion of the Deathmaster into the mix for the Skaven. This is obviously a few years old now, but a great miniature. Really nice direction for them to take the Clan Eshin and the Skaven, as you can see there. But unfortunately, if you are a Skaven player, you have been stuck with very old miniatures for a very long time. Do they still even have them on the web store? I think they must still. They've hidden them even far. These are the miniatures that you have to use for night runners currently in the game. Old Skaven from the first Mordheim release, that core box way back in the day. These sort of weird dog-like, apish style night runners rather than the badass looking versions that we got there. There was a Warhammer Underworlds warband that came out that was really, really nice, and I think a lot of people used as a kind of stand-in for these, but it's almost criminal that these haven't been updated in such a long time, and that's why it was quite interesting to see some of the information about the Skaven popping up over on Reddit and things like that over the last little while. So Boole posted something about the gutter runners and talking about seeing the unit and the fact that we're all decked out. So as you can see here, every single one of them's got their face covered, gas masks, bandages, you named it, all draped in massive black cloaks. 2 of them really stand out. The leader lurking on a wooden plank with a collapsed building, weeping blade in his right hand, helmet on, straight up giving Death Master vibes, which would be very akin to this miniature as you see here. Another one rocking a skull helmet, hauling a green poison tank on his back, tubes running down to what looks like Qatar in both hands. The rest are no slouch either. 5 with short blades, 2 of them dual wielding, 1 with the bladed tonfa, 1 lunging forward, holding 2 Teko Kaji, and there's this gas mask guy, honestly no clue what weapon he's carrying. Oh, and they come with 2 giant rat tokens. Each token's a base with a couple of giant rats strapped with bombs to their backs. Yep, 2 of those. Sounds to me like this could potentially have been a Warcry warband that never went anywhere and never turned into anything, which is quite interesting. There were rumours that there was going to be some kind of box that would feature both the Cities of Sigmar and the Skaven sort of together. Maybe that was initially going to, obviously take everything I'm saying with a pinch of salt because it could be utter nonsense. But it feels to me like that could have been, potentially at one point, some kind of Warcry refresh for a new edition. And then instead what they've done here is they've taken those. They're obviously not going to make it into Warcry as it stands anyway at the moment, but they're going to filter them into the actual game itself of Warhammer Age of Sigmar and give them this unit upgrade for people to use in their games. It'll be very interesting to see how they do this. Will it be like a Regiment of Renown box that you then just get free War Scrolls for? That seems like it feels like it works. You've also got this from Boole about night runners. So they're basically ninjas, no capes. Instead, they're decked out in full body black bodysuits, hands and feet exposed. 2 types of mask, one with just their eyes showing and the classic Skaven mask. Their leader's wearing a helmet, dual-wielding a Kurasagama scythe on the left end, meteor hammer on the counterweight for the right. Very cool. Maybe he's stolen that from a Cities of Sigmar fellow. They got a ton of weapon loadouts, both hands with Kusarigama like the leaders, short blades in left hand, slings in right, just a sling in one hand, just a dagger in one hand, just a shuriken in one hand, shuriken in left, plus dagger in the right, nunchuka in one hand. You get the idea. And most of all, like the gutter runners, also have weapons strapped to their tails. Pretty clear there's a whole different thing from gutter runners. These guys are classic ninjas. So again, two interesting things there revealed for them. It feels odd that they didn't come out alongside what they were doing with the Skaven refresh for the new edition of the game, especially because pretty much everything else is kind of refreshed, apart from Pestilence, I suppose, as well, to a degree. But I could see this all being tied into more of the expanding narrative for the Vermin Doom and the Skaven, and overtaking all of the Mortal Realms, and all the fighting that's going on in Akshi and everything at the moment as well. So maybe they're going to be popping up as some kind of new thing later on down the line for the Skaven, tied to a campaign, probably as a Regiment of Renown, plus some just simple war scroll releases that will slide in for free for you to get your hands on, because you've already obviously got the Skaven Battle Tome. Still a year and a bit before we get to a new edition. Hopefully it's not one of these ones where everything gets indexed again and all that kind of stuff, but we will have to wait and see on that front anyway. But yeah, that is the current sort of rumours when it comes to the Skaven, which is quite interesting. I quite like the idea of them upgrading these, because obviously they are super old and they definitely need to have some love and attention poured on them. But yeah, if they all end up looking like this and super badass, I could see the Skaven getting some really fun stuff when it comes to Eshin and people collecting them in order to take them in different ways. We already have a version of the Vermin Lord done as a sort of assassin, which I think is quite nice, which is the Deceiver that you see here. So, you know, more to kind of theme around him would be super fun, I think. So yeah, let me know what you think about that in the comments down below when it comes to the Skaven. Where do you think they're going to take things, and what they're going to do to upgrade these classic Night Runners? Next up, we have a faction that is very true to my heart, and that is the Fyreslayers. It's no secret within the Warhammer Age of Sigmar community that the Fyreslayers are a faction that has been in desperate need of some kind of love and attention over the last couple of years. They have an inordinate amount of heroes for you to use as part of their army, which is no bad thing. They are an army of, you know, slayers who go out to defeat as many dangerous things as possible. They fight massive monsters and that kind of thing. So big deeds, big heroes kind of makes sense. But since we got a look at things like the Vulcan Flameseekers and what they brought to the aesthetic of the Fyreslayers not that long ago for Warcry, a lot of people have been crying out for them to do some fun stuff with the Fyreslayers. And it's been a really interesting one, because the Fyreslayers, to a certain degree, have kind of been in this kind of halfway house of, are we losing them completely? Are they going to be completely rebranded? Are they just... is nothing going to happen to them? Are they just going to get a new hero and that's it? We did get a little bit of a sneaky peek of one of them, or at least the sort of like the sort of midriff of one of them, I suppose, in a Warhammer preview not too long ago. So that's at least another hero coming down the pipeline. But again, if they can make it so that the Fyreslayers start to end up looking like this, I think we're going to be quids in. Well, I am anyway, when it comes to expanding my Fyreslayer force. And sort of going into that, we had some more rumours from Boole that came out fairly recently, sort of talking about what's going to be surviving this massive change for Warhammer Age of Sigmar and the Fyreslayers. So, Uruk Runefathers, Rune Sons, and Rune Smiters. So, the elements of the Fyreslayers that still come on the back of Magmadroths, they're going to be staying in the mix, which is obviously good to see. You then have the Battlesmith, so sort of like your bardic addition to your collection, gives you like a sort of like an aura ability and things like that. That's going to be thrown into the mix, so you're going to get one of those. I believe they are inside the Fyreslayer Spearhead currently. That's the only way you can get them. Auric Flamekeeper, great to see them staying around. Great miniature, love that. Fairly modern, fairly new as well. Came as part of was it part of a kit or a box set alongside the Ideneth Deepkin, I think. when they were kept doing those sort of versus box sets. That's coming down the pipeline. Grimhold Exile, great to see that coming there as well. Obviously, the Magmadroth versions of the Father, the Son, and the Smiter, not the Holy Spirit. All the Hearthguard are staying around as well. So we're going to be playing around with the Auric Hearthguard, the Hearthguard Berserkers. Good to see them still there. They are an elite option. It's what pretty much everybody will run rather than the standard troops, which is where we get to some interesting things. And then, of course, the Vulcan Flameseekers, which we were just looking at there, which was this unit that was included as a Warcry. So that's going to be making the transition of potentially over into the 4th edition version of the Fyreslayers. But that does also mean that we're going to be losing some units. So the Volkite Berserkers seem to be going the way of the Dodo. Not necessarily a bad thing. They've all been very much of a muchness anyway. I mean, I quite like them, but they are a very, very old kit. They came out in the same sort of era as the launch of the Fyreslayers, back in the 1st edition, the first version of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I remember having my core box of Stormcast Eternals, and then I had I just bought a box of these, because at that point you could just throw anything together. You could just do a melting pot. And so I was going to do a Stormcast Eternals army that had a side of Volkite Berserkers with it. Hot stuff, obviously. And that was going to be where I was going with that one. Never did anything with those until I started rebranding the army, repainting it, and all that kind of thing. And now it's what it is now. So, you know, they are due definitely a change, or at least a little bit of an update, which is what we're seeing here. This also then ties into this rumours around what's going to happen to the Fyreslayers. A lot of people have been saying that the Fyreslayers are going to be sort of melded into sort of something called the Khazalid holds. So this is where the Fyreslayers almost become the elite element of the this Khazalid book. And then you get a lot of stuff that comes together to create an army that effectively means that you have the dispossessed that were in the Cities of Sigmar range being moved out of that, reinvented and updated, because of course a lot of those kits are actually old Warhammer old world kits, if you know what I mean. I mean, they're no longer even included as part of the web store, as you can see here. You've only got the elves and stuff included on the Cities of Sigmar side. More in there in a second anyway. So it kind of makes sense that they would rebrand them and bring the Duardin into the mix alongside the Fyreslayers in some form, which is quite interesting. There's also been sort of lots of rumours around the idea that we're going to be seeing some weird stuff to do with different dwarves from different holds, some of them that are able to shape wood in different ways and all that kind of different thing. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with that. Playing around with different ideas in terms of the different dwarven gods. If you've read or you've seen my video about the Hellsmiths of Ashut recently, there's a lot of detail in there, some of it that you can see here actually, that sort of focuses on the different gods, so Valia, Grimnir and Grungni. Grungni is now fighting alongside Sigmar in Azir, helping him build his armies, build the armour for the Stormcast Eternals. Grimnir was shattered into thousands and thousands of pieces and has been spread across the Mortal Realms after his battle with Volcatrix, and we never really saw it happen with Valia. Sort of disappeared into the shadows almost. So it'll be really interesting to see how they come together and sort of how this all works. There's lots of interesting stuff happening in the Warhammer Age of Sigmar world at the moment when it comes to the idea of the gods and how factions within sort of stable sort of order factions, I suppose you'd say, like the Cities of Sigmar, will also worship things like Alariel and things like that, or maybe even Marathi Kane and things. So there's lots of different ways that they've kind of been bringing the gods back into the mix, and I think that would really work for what they're doing with the dwarves right now, the Duardin within Warhammer Age of Sigmar. They've also talked about things like cool stuff like golems and things like that. There's going to be a big Magmadroth focus as well, I think, was the other thing they went for. There was a little bit of a breakdown here on some of the other stuff. So this sort of ties into some other rumours. So this one comes from Bull again. This was from Baron Klatz over on Reddit, where a lot of the stuff you'll find for the rumours for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So we're getting a Lofnir-themed warband Spearhead box with lots of Magmadroth in there. Magmadroth will be the focus. There's also going to be these kindle droths, so sort of younger magma droths that maybe match up with what we were seeing for the Vulcan Flame Seekers. So this little one here, adorable, as you can see. And then other things like the golems, the battering rams, and all that kind of stuff like that. So 12 new kits coming for Warhammer Age of Sigmar over the course of this edition. 3 or 4 of them being Fyreslayers. All sort of fits together quite interestingly there as well. So again, let me know what you think in the comments down below when it comes to Fyreslayers and sort of where they fit into things. And obviously go and have a look for yourself and have a look through all of these. As always, take things with a pinch of salt because they are just rumours. But go and see what you think of those. Cool. This also then ties sort of into the next faction that I'm going to be looking at, and that is the Cities of Sigmar. So the Cities of Sigmar have already had a fairly big reinvention with the addition of the new miniatures and things that we've had for them over the last couple of years. There was a move away from the old ties to the Empire and the Empire of Man that obviously shifted over to Warhammer the Old World. And so all of those kits sort of like stepped to the sides, and we've got this new aesthetic for the Cities of Sigmar, which I really like because it really ties into that sort of grim, dark feel of Warhammer, and it kind of gives you that kick of it in Warhammer Age of Sigmar, which, other than that, is very sort of like power metal, hair metal, crazy electro funk sort of wildness. And so having this kind of like grounded element of stuff built into the Cities of Sigmar is a really nice touch. Now, the rumour for them, as we've been seeing, if you have been looking, is that we're going to be getting a big change of all sorts of different things. So there's all sorts of rumours when it comes to the Cities of Sigmar. But one of the big things is that we're going to be seeing all of the Duardin, which have already gone, be sort of taken out of the list. And the same thing will go with the elves. So all of the stuff to do with the Dark Elves will shift over to go into potentially a new edition of Warhammer the Old World. That would make sense to me. Throw in those extra factions now that you've done all of the others. Feels like it works. Move the timeline forward with a new edition. Throw these in. They're still all shown with their square bases. So kind of feels like it would make sense for them to do that. And then this means that we're going to be seeing some fun stuff popping up for the Cities of Sigmar to fill in those gaps. So the focus feels like it's going to be mainly humans and that sort of like struggle of humanity in the mix. It will be a little bit of a shame to not have some dwarves and elves in the mix alongside this, because dwarves and elves, elves and Duardin, do live alongside humans in the Cities of Sigmar, but it kind of makes sense for them from an aesthetic point of view to kind of move them apart from each other, I suppose. And that does mean we're going to be seeing some fun things potentially, like the idea of cog forts is quite cool. I like the sound of that, alongside some fun stuff. There's also been this tie into this new idea of a Spearhead start set coming up, which came from White Fang and Bull. And this was this thing linking back to the Skaven from before, where we had the Deathmaster, the Night Runner, and the Gutter Runners, and even more stuff going up against the Free Guild Marshal, Free Guild War Priest, the Field Guild Gallant, which is a new miniature, the Free Guild Shooters, and all sorts of different things like that. So that's all thrown into the mix, along things like Arch Knights and stuff like that, which I think is really fun. Would fit with the kind of aesthetic we've seen develop for the Cities of Sigmar and some of the characters in things like Darkwater, for example. So that would be a cool way to go. Talking of Darkwater, that's also a great opportunity for us to look at the kind of things for the Duardin as well, because obviously you have the Dwarven character, the Duardin character in the game as well there too. So, you know, that kind of aesthetic could easily carry over into what we're seeing for the larger armies. We've also been getting lots of other things like steam tanks potentially going the way of the Dodo. Kind of makes sense again. And it'll be interesting to see where they go when it sort of moves into the new thing. Be interesting to see if they do new versions of older miniatures as well. So things like the Flagellants and things like that, they kind of tie into the rules for Talia Vedra and sort of how she works. So maybe we'll see them get updated, because of course they've moved over to Warhammer the Old World anyway. And so it'd be nice to see some more fanatics in the mix to kind of bring that together. And you can see this talked about in all these rumours here as well. There's also lots of strange and quirky sort of pictures and leaks and all sorts of different things, all blurry, of course, because, of course, why would they not be? Giving us hints and tips as to what's coming up. I did want to touch on one extra thing as well, because one of the I've talked about the kind of 3 factions that I wanted to really focus on because I think they're going to be the key ones. But one of the big things for the Cities of Sigmar is we did get to see them take another approach to ogres in the Moor tribes with this. Now, obviously, the ogre Moor tribes themselves are still a fairly unique and separate army in their own right. And they're all big and blubberous and that kind of thing. But we got to see this really cool Ogre Warhawk here, which is a bit more of a slimmed down version of the Ogres. And again, we saw one in Curse City as well, taking on the role of a bit more of a mercenary. And this makes me think that we're going to see a few more Ogres popping up within the ranks of the Cities of Sigmar, which I think would be quite cool. This then means that they can really sort of drive home the Ogre themes of the new Moor Tribes book when it arrives later on down the line. So, sorry for making you sick. But the Ogres are definitely going to get a full refresh, a full-on refresh. And I just want to quickly go through this because obviously we'll find out more stuff in the future anyway. But just to give you a taste of kind of what's happening. Ogres, huge refresh. 3 new unique heroes, a unique Tyrant, a unique Butcher, makes sense, again, and a new Man-Eater, alongside Hunters, Mournfangs, Butchers, Tyrant, Ogre Gluttons, and Iron Guts, makes sense again. They are all really, really old miniatures. Losing Icebrow Hunters, Frost Sabers, Firebellies, Icefall Yetis, Lead Belchers, Great Moorpot, and the Old Tyrant, which only came out in 2019 as well, which is weird. But they're all going the way of the Dodo, which means they might move over into Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Not Warhammer, move over into the Old World, of course. But the other thing with that is that it might also mean that they get refreshed later on down the line as a alternative faction for the Ogres. So you have them really focus back in on the idea of them being sort of Greaser's sort of Iron Gut feel to them, sort of classic Ogres, again for Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and then later on down the line they'll bring in all the sort of furry guys and that kind of thing, and they'll take things in a different direction there, but we shall have to wait and see. So yes, 3 factions that I'm kind of really interested to see what they do with them, and then of course that mega refresh. We do have Adepticon coming around the corner, so you know it's not long until we're probably going to see another big dose of Warhammer Age of Sigmar rumours and reveals and all that kind of thing as well. I'm really hoping that we get to see the Fyreslayers because I want to know where I'm going to take my army next. I think it's going to be really fun. Make sure to come and check out this link. I'll have it down in the description so you can go and have a look at it for yourself and see what you think there too. Yeah, so a little bit of a rumory video. I'm quite excited about Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I think it's a great game, really fun world. Definitely give it a go if you haven't done already. I would also like to say that if you want to find out more, obviously come over to the channel and check it out. Subscribe, like, do all that fun stuff. Comment. I love reading all of your comments. Super fun. We also have memberships on the channel as well. I do have a member. Shout out to Mini Mementalis, who's doing, sorry, I butchered GM already, who has signed up. So if you want to, help me out and join with the membership, please do. I am looking to try and get live streams and things set up. So that is coming in the future. So if you're interested in helping me out, please do so. There's other things like a Ko-fi link down below as well. I also have affiliate links. So I've got a Firestorm Games affiliate link, and there is also a War Games Atlantic affiliate link as well. So if you want to get your hands on some goodies, please use those because it'll all give me a little bit of a kickback. But there we go. Most importantly, love hearing what you have to say in the comments. Can't wait to hear what you have to say about all of these. Dive in, let me know your thoughts. And yeah, we're going to be getting stuck into more videos. There will be another members video on Friday, looking at what I've been doing. Hint, 8mm French, of course. And some Star Wars Shatterpoint terrain, actually. I'll show that off as well. And then there'll be another video on Sunday. It might be Warhammer Age of Sigmar themed if the battle tomes arrive on time. Otherwise, it'll be about something different. Maybe a role-playing game. Who knows? But yeah, thank you very much for watching, folks. And dive into the comments and let me know what you think. Tatty buys.